I'm already knowing that this topic is going to be extremely controversial because in the African American church we have a whole lot of golden calves. And whenever somebody stands up and addresses those golden calves, inevitably feathers are ruffled, people get agitated, people get upset, and you stir the hornet's nest. So I already know that I'm going to make some people mad. But let me just say this. These are my opinions. I welcome your feedback. I hope we can engage in dialogue, maybe even debate. At the end of the day, I want us to still love each other, but I do have to address these things. And the reason why I have to address these things is because I love the African American church. And because I love the African American church, I'm not afraid to step back and be critical and look at the African American church with an objective eye so that we can tweak some things so that it can get better and it can be fixed. When you really love something, that's what you do. It's like you love your mama, which is why you're the only one that can talk about your mama. If anybody else talks about your mama, they're going to get slapped. But you can talk about your mama because you love your mama, and it's the same thing with the African American church. All right. Now let me issue some disclaimers here. I'm focusing on the African American church because that's the context from which I derive my views and perspectives. I was born and raised in the African American church. But by focusing on the African American church, I am in no way saying implicitly that every other church is okay. The white church is great, the Hispanic church is great, the Asian church is great. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. Okay? Every church has its issues. Every church has its problems. But I'm focusing on the African American church because I was born and raised in the African American church. That's where I'm from. So I can only speak intelligently about what I know. Okay? So let's get into the discussion at hand. I'm just going to put it out there. In the African American church, there is far too much pastor worship. I understand honoring your pastor. I understand having respect for your pastor. But you can easily cross the line between honor and worship. Let me give you some historical perspective, all right? During the civil rights struggle, the African American church was the place where we all went to be informed and educated, and that's where we went to stay abreast on what was going on in the movement, okay? We developed an exalted view of the pastor because the pastors, they all banded together to lead the charge and to lead the struggle, and so we loved our pastors because our pastors during the civil rights struggle, they stood on the front lines of the movement, and so we looked at them in an exalted way because they were risking their lives and the lives of their families for our forward progress and for our betterment. And that was needed then. But today, rather than simply honoring our pastors and respecting our pastors, we're placing, in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, we're placing our pastors on pedestals that they don't belong. Let me give you some examples. The pastor should be the chief servant, the number one servant. But yet in a lot of African American churches, the pastors will have more armor bearers than choir members. And you got to think about it. It's the pastor's role to be the number one servant. But when that gets twisted and the pastor now is the person being served rather than the number one servant, we need to ask what's going on. Okay? I don't have any problems with honoring the pastor and wanting to take care of the pastor. But last time I checked, the majority of African American pastors can carry their own Bible. I'm just saying. Also, if you ask every single African American pastor, he will tell you, or she will tell you, that it's important for their congregants to come to church on time. Yet, in a lot of African American churches, it's almost a tradition for the pastor to be the one that's fashionably late. Service will be hot and the praise and worship will be going on and the Spirit of the Lord will be moving, And then 30 minutes after it starts, here comes the pastor with his entourage. Everything stops, the attention shifts, and the pastor is now the focus when it should be the Spirit of God. I think it's a little bit out of line when pastors desire parishioners to get to church on time, but yet come to the service 30, 40 minutes late like it's okay. Now listen, I am a pastor. I was a youth pastor for years. I was a lead pastor for 2 years. Ordinations don't expire. I'm still a pastor, which is why I feel justified in saying these things. But I think as pastors, we need to refocus the attention of our parishioners back to the Father. Even using titles like Reverend. Was anybody in the Bible called Reverend? Was the Apostle Paul called Reverend? Was Timothy called Reverend? Now, if you want to be called Reverend, that's fine. And if you want to call your pastor Reverend, that's okay. You're not going to go to hell for calling your pastor Reverend. But really think about what that word Reverend means. And really think about who it is that we should be reverencing. So the next time you see your pastor, I want you to love him or her. I want you to honor him or her. I want you to appreciate him or her. But I do not want you to worship him or her. Because the worship that you're giving to him or her is only reserved for the man that put him or her in position. And that's God himself. Yo, my name is Isaiah, and I just told you the truth. Peace out.